Hi all, and we're going to carry on into July of this year. And we had the latest instalment of the Mueller saga, now 2.5 years on, and still no mass arrests or actual evidence of all these thousands of indictments, just chatter and more chatter with zero actions of any sort of substance. The country is bankrupt, and they all argue over who is more corrupt than the other. I would say the people deserve better, but the majority are either not interested or just participating in arguing over this circus act called American politics. Then Microsoft announced in the middle of July that their NASDAQ platform is now transferring to Excel. Oops. I guess their Oracle system was turned into bacon and went sizzle sizzle. There was a headline this week from the Portal People, which is the mainstream media for new listeners. Was Iran, those nasty Iranians again, is squirreling away millions of barrels of oil in storage tanks in Chinese ports. Avoiding a breach, it said, of the US sanctions whilst providing its biggest buyer with a ready supply of crude to tap into if supply is disrupted or sanctions are lifted. However, Iran has continued to ship large amounts of crude oil to China, where they are being placed in bonded storage, according to people familiar with Chinese ports. This was the mainstream media spin to cover stuff that was revealed in our show, both in last night's and earlier. And it's not the first time this year that they did that, and it wasn't the last either. The tiny man and the tiny show goes far, it seems. And the background to this is you'll find that it is the Black Dragon and the Kuomintang groups and their theft out of Iran and Iraq that went to China, and also the Bush family-based refinery in Houston, Texas. That has now been blocked. So they used their propaganda to label Iran to try and convince Trump and others via John Bolton and Mike Pompeo that they must attack Iran so they can steal all the oil again. And then I gave a warning. In the near future, I suspect it will eventually break. A plethora of so-called famous people's names off the internet and out in the main public arena. Virtually every so-called star of TV or stage is involved in it. Every model agency implicated. Politicians, volumes of them in every country. The music industry, large numbers of top stars from the 1960s onwards, it seems, are all involved in pedophilia. The list will sicken many as their favourite TV stars are outed and implicated. But there is a sinister backdrop to all of this that must not go unnoticed or unrecognised. The roles of certain agencies, namely Mossad and the CIA, along with Tavistock and other so-called institutes. Is it institute or institution? Upon investigations on my own sources, those two are implicated heavily in these what I would largely describe as honeypot exercises. I refuse to believe, under normal circumstances, this level of people are involved as pedophiles. It just doesn't compute to logic, reason, or whatever. And that many of them have undergone MKUltra programming, which is the CIA mind control techniques, and then they use the Operation Mockingbird, which is a joint CIA and Mossad operation of control the media, to cover it up and honeypot people, many of whom were on drugs, funny enough supplied by the same CIA. There was a lot of political issues going on in July, and some of the solutions that I've put forward in this show have been heard at the top end, and I was asked to continue. And so we did this solutions piece, and it went to Mr. Trump. And it was suggested by this host only that we would have to close down all American borders, no one in, no one out, for a set time period whilst operations are being carried out. Cancel all global trade deals, including the stock markets, as this will prevent transfers and further looting out of the country whilst clean-up takes place. Cancel the UN, NATO and any other commissions or think tank groups operating under deceit to the public. Issue executive orders to reassemble the military, police and National Guard under America dictates, not US. Can all be done under the Emergency War Powers Act, and instruct them to go and arrest all the top-end criminals in one sweep. Send in a task force team to take over all media outlets, throw out the agency script readers and replace with people who will deliver real news and broadcasts approved by the President, with a series of shows detailing what has and is going on. Remove all corporate and conglomerate advertising off the TV to avoid further lobbying attempt takeovers. Allow total access to entrepreneur media outlets not connected to current mainstream media projects. News to not be based on propaganda or agency-backed scripts. The police to be brought back under the control of the government, not private security holders like Citadel or Vice. Take over Citadel, Vice, G4S and all the other so-called private security groups, as all work for the Rothschilds cult. An executive order to cancel operations of all troops fighting abroad, arrange their return and use them to defend America and its borders, or employ them to go after all these dark forces, people globally, on the condition other countries request help to do so, which is a must. Trust in America is in short supply. Otherwise it will look like another of the clown invasion tactics again, which we have much trust globally to regain. This would be a start. Restore the organic constitution and delete all the core pirate versions. Restore the Bill of Rights. Delete the Patriot Act and restore an American government which we have not had since 1871. Remove all references to United States. This country is not the US. The US is a European power structure created by the dark forces. Go to all AIPAC and other Israel conducive offices, remove all people or contents and freeze their bank accounts or sequester those funds for the operations and close them all down. Find out who the top-end contributors were and freeze their accounts until investigations are completed. Go into the Federal Reserve building, throw them all out and take over the operations in connection with the Manor World Holding Trust. The lower end people working in there can be used for the investigations and operations within that building. Issue a new American currency backed by the assets contained within the trust and our own borders, with no references to the United States, notes or other debt instruments to be placed on the new money. No more 10% costs per dollar, saving the country a massive amount each year. Go into the IRS building, throw out all top CEOs and management and take over their operations, implement the new tax structure already worked on and handed over previously to you to implement. Take all funds collected illegally out of the IRS and give it back to the people in the form of rebates. All new taxes will only go to America, not the Crown or other Rothschild slush fund accounts. Go into the US Treasury and the AU Treasury plus other shell treasuries and remove all top CEOs and management and take over all operations in connection with the Manor World Holding Trust. Lower end people in there can stay in their jobs and help with the investigations within the building. Eliminating several shell companies and treasuries will have a huge savings on government spending. Go into the UN building and close it down until further notice. It can be used to notify the rest of the world of what is going on, with real people talking common sense, not puppets on a string repeating scripted narratives and agendas. The Manor World Holding Trust has 6 seats in the UN Council. Go into Silicon Valley, strip it all down and never allow one consortium to run that type of project with no oversight, which is an actual national security issue, and deal with the clowns connected to the CIA and NSA in that industry. Close down GoOgle and Microsoft, 2 giant clown conglomerates that has cheated, lied, spied and looted this country beyond all reason. We have other solutions to not require either of them, and they are ready to roll out also. The last 2 items will create more jobs and eliminate flagrant national security issues. Cancel all foreign aid, all grants to charities until they clean up their act also. All of them are vulture capitalists, harvesting funds off people under false pretences. Lower end people can carry on doing the real work within those organisations of helping people and animals. Currently, they are only helping themselves at the top end. How can you say you are a charity worker and claim $300,000 to $1 million a year in paychecks? No, you're just self-serving, greedy bastards is your correct term. This will also save huge amounts of funds that can be used elsewhere for better purposes, the Clinton Foundation being a prime example of that. Go into the FBI, CIA, DHS and NSA and rout out anti-American and anti-life peoples. Scale down agencies, as most are only spying on the American public, and the NSA can be eliminated entirely, as it's just a sub-office of the GCHQ and Crown operations. Staff not immersed in clown operations can be diverted into many new jobs, investigating each department for misappropriation and also clown operations. This again will save huge amounts of wasted public funds. Create a task force and go into every so-called research centre, assess all projects and experiments going on in those facilities, remove clowns weaponising anything against the public. All research from the future must be for the benefit of all people, living beings, plant life and the planet only. eliminate permanently the rest. This will also save huge amounts of wasted public funds. We must quickly set up manufacturing and agriculture with the goal of the country becoming self-sustaining with no imports forthcoming due to the cancelled trade deals. We have much of that already to roll out. As other countries follow suit of cleaning out all of their filth, we can reintroduce trade deals, travel, currency exchanges and partnerships with those countries as appropriate. Where will those funds come from? Well, a country will have massive savings with no Federal Reserve alone, and the announcement of the elimination of their alleged debt, as it's all been paid. No interest payments per day will make a start. Great savings will be made on government spending as each department is overhauled using the staff within those organisations. There has already been massive savings in government spending due to the blocking of over half of the funds given to the Pentagon each year that used to go out the back door. Finally, the Trust has stated it will fund this country until it becomes self-sufficient, which it is estimated to be 3 to 5 years. With the restructuring of the tax money will go to America and Americans, not the Crown and the Rothschilds. We have the assets and the wherewithal to change this country and subsequently the world towards a better path. Then Mr. Trump was complaining at this time repeatedly about biased coverage, and that hasn't changed, and fake news. And we put forward another solution. Is it not time it was addressed once and for all? We have the solutions to fix that, Mr. Trump. 1. Sue them for slander. You know their funds are dwindling. 2. Find loopholes in the 1934 Telecommunications Act. I found several in scanning that document recently. 3. Declare them as a terrorist organisation, which essentially they are under the Patriot Act, and remove their licences. 4. Ban them from all rallies and speeches. 5. It's up to the people to create a nationwide movement and never watch their channels again. And I'm sure there will be a backlash as clown operators behind the scenes will shout dictator, fascist, Nazi if he does that. Oh wait, they already do that now. So there'll be no backlash. This was from an ancient tablet, and we put a portion of it out. Bear in mind, I had warned about people being on mountains earlier, and they studied why the volcanoes weren't belching the much needed atmospheric gases and thus not releasing any warmth into the atmosphere. Things were getting worse. Nibiru's problem was to be solved by getting gold to repair the atmosphere and or to blast the volcanoes with nuclear weapons, or he could decide to do nothing. Let with weapons of terror the bowels of Nibiru be cut open. Let volcanoes again erupt, he then commanded. With weapons of terror, skyborne chariots were armed with terror missiles from the sky where volcanoes struck. The mountains swayed, the valleys shuddered as great brilliances with thunder exploded. Now, this was taken from the Nibiru Anunnaki tablets of life on their planet. And it can tell us much about our own planet. 1. It was they who introduced nuclear weapons here. They who used it on their own planet to try and waken dormant volcanoes. And it seems by this that it is the volcanoes that create a planet's atmosphere, which then creates the rain. Which is correct. What one can deduce from that is, as I have covered in previous shows, that the northern and southern lights are not coming from the sky sun, but the central sun in the middle of a planet, as above, so below, which heats up the inner core and drives the volcano fires. This must have been failing on the Nibiru planet for whatever reason, and so the cycle of life started to die off. Now, what I do know is the Anunnaki were stealing or taken by force what I would call the source pack out of the core of planets and the suns, and they were dying off until the technology to do that was removed from them in 2014. So what happens when the volcanoes don't go off? Well, the planet begins to shrink and shrivel up due to no expansion of the hardened rock that came out of the volcano. If a planet shrinks, it then becomes a hollowed out planetoid and subsequently resembles a moon. And we ask the question, is it possible our moon was once Nibiru? Our current moon is too large to be a natural moon, and it has a course of nature, and it as a cause of nature cannot be in a fixed stationary orbit with only one side showing, which means it's a fixed satellite station only facing one way. And it's a bit like cable TV. The cable TV always faces Earth to produce the signal. It doesn't spin and go and face outer space, otherwise you would lose the signal. And this fixed stationary object in our sky is the same thing. Hollowed out planetoid. And was placed there, not crashed into the Earth, and was created out of the debris. Because if that was the case, why are the moon rock samples older than the Earth? Oops. Of course, they came here for the monatomic gold to reseed their planet's atmosphere. But it could also be the case that they mined too much gold on their own planet, given that gold is a planet's ballast, which then sent Nibiru on its elongated orbit. Perhaps there's a reason why many of our volcanoes are going off now, and why I warned to stay off mountains recently. Expansion. Timelines fixed does not mean you or we have won. Winning is not an end goal. Winning is doing the right things on a daily basis in accordance with cosmic and natural law under the Golden Rule principle. Developing the self is winning. Addressing your core issues of inner and shadow work is winning. Caring and sharing is winning. Service to others is winning. Being an example of change is winning. Overcoming fears is winning. Being yourself is also winning. Making your voice heard is winning. You are the voice. Use it. Use it.